New Mexico is once again in the money. Oil and gas revenue is up to the tune of $907 million. That's 13% above the current state budget. Now the question, Laura Sanchez-Reve, let's get right to it. How do we spend this? Or do we not? Do we sit on it and just let this thing accrue? What do we do here? We've got a lot of needs.
Well,
do we dive in? How do we do this?
But I think for anybody who's had to worry, business owners, people who do their own sort of side hustle, consulting, whatever, where you have boom and bust cycles, the idea of overspending when you have a little bit extra, and then possibly not having enough when you have those lean times,
right.
Not a good idea
Okay.
long term. And I think in the same way, it's not a good idea for the state to just automatically spend all of that money, especially not on recurring needs.
Okay.
And that's a difficult thing because we have so many recurring needs. And recurring needs are, obviously a lot of staffing, education is a recurring need. There's a lot of programs that once you grow them, really hard to unwind that. You can't unring that bell. And the money has to come from somewhere. And I think that certainly a lot of people in the Permian Basin, but I think statewide, when you look at the trends from oil and gas, we're bound to have a bust coming up. We've had a boom now for quite longer than expected. And so it would be very foolhardy to all of a sudden come up with all kinds of new programs that are going to have to be sustained long term with this new money. For me, one of the interesting things was the Lujan Grisham suggestion. Somebody sort of brought it up on a recent Revenue Tax Stabilization Committee meeting about having a separate permanent fund created for early childhood education. That's been a real hot button issue in terms of tapping into the permanent fund that we already have by the Constitution. That's been very separate, very controversial. This would be creating another permanent fund. There's a lot of issues there to unpack, but I do think that creating some sort of a one-time, like funding a one-time source of ongoing programs might be a way to do it. Something where you're not going to have a recurring need every year.
I'm glad you brought up recurring first, because Janet, that actually gives me the opportunity to ask about the non-recurring stuff, which is about infrastructure. We have a desperate need here in our state. I just don't want to get into the details, but we just know that.
Yes.
Is that a viable thing with $907 million and money coming in to supplant the current budget as well? So we're actually doing a little bit better than even the 907 looks like.
Right. But Laura makes an excellent point. This is one-time money. There is no guarantee that this will be a recurring funding source. So there are some very specific needs that I think that they should look at that are one-time. Roads is one. You cannot do commerce without roads. And on the Navajo Nation in particular, where we can actually build roads, it's long overdue.
Right.
Long overdue.
Right.
But that's not the only thing. We know PERA and ERB are underfunded. A one-time payment would help a lot. Dark fiber. How many years have I talked about
Oh,
that?
I know. Let me back you up a quick sec. The PERA, the retirement stuff. That's a big deal. This is a time bomb. The fuse is lit. You can hear it in the background if you're willing to listen.
Yes.
Is this an opportunity to pay down some
Yes.
of that? Okay.
And
how much are you willing to put on the table?
I would say so. If you asked me, but if you had asked me when I was serving, I will tell you what the number was. It was $200 million. That's what you put down, and then you plan to make this solvent.
Gotcha.
And I sat on that committee, and guess what we did? Nothing.
Zero, yeah.
Nothing. But there are some other things.
Please.
We have another time bomb coming, and it is called the balloon payment for the rail runner.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
And so I agree with Laura that you need to be fiscally prudent. There is no guarantee, and I do want to remind you, I have been out of the legislature since 2011.
Right.
Before I left, there was a bust,
been that
and
long?
yes, I know, it's amazing.
Did we not do a bit of a refinance on the train, though? Did we?
Oh, we
not do-
did. We
okay.
did. There's still a balloon payment.
Okay.
There is still a balloon payment.
Okay.
But when I was there, when I started, we had a lot of money.
Right.
Before I left, we had to cut $1 billion. During the Martinez administration, they had a lot of money.
That's right.
And then they had to cut
It's to
$1
Laura's
billion.
point. That's right.
And so you really need to look at one-time expenditures that will make a difference long term.
Gotcha.
And so
Interesting.
that's what I've outlined.
I hear that.
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure, that's right. But education's hanging out there too. And we're in a mood to spend on education right now. Let me throw this in there as well. We also have some recent reporting that is showing a lot of the early childhood stuff is not showing results because we're not in a cohesive place yet, which gives a lot of folks who are not crazy about the amount of money we throw at education more ammunition to say, we're just throwing money at education, not getting a result. What do we do with all this extra money with education? Is this the time to really get after it, or should we just back up a little bit, let this thing take hold? what the administration wants to do, and then get after it? What's your sense of it?
Well, I think that it makes sense in that everybody who understands how government should run is that we shouldn't start ramping up expenditures when we don't know if the money is actually going to be there in the future. So we can use it for one-time expenditures. But I think that instead of saying that these programs that we have decided are efficacious and evidence-based, that we don't have real data about for sure whether or not they are, and perhaps they are not, that we ought to take the opportunity to do some critical evaluation of those programs. We have some money now that we could say, you know, we're not going to evaluate ourselves. We're going to get some people in from a broad cross-section of people who understand what it's going to take to improve literacy and numeracy for our education system, and that we're going to bring those people in and we're going to take a look at the schools, critically evaluate how we create some efficiencies in the system that don't currently exist, and that we do things that actually are going to provide the transformation that we're looking for. So I question whether or not we actually have done that, and that's what I would say the money should be used for.
Right, right.
And if they want to know how, they can ask me.
There you go. Your quick cut on education. What do you think? about
Education,
yeah.
I think they're funded to the extent that it needs to be. What needs to happen, to touch on a little bit what Catherine was talking about, is it needs to be consolidated.
Gotcha.
You need to take away a lot of the restrictions and consolidate programs. Focus on what's working, and then what's not is move it away.
Right.
I would say with the surplus, definitely go with infrastructure, as Laura and I think the rest of us were saying as well. And I would say, since we've been losing so many people to Arizona, Colorado, and Texas, let's give it back to the people as well.
What a
Why not
concept.
provide some type of stipend similar to what Alaska does for residents and reward us for being New Mexico
I
residents?
love that.
Good point.
Good stuff. All right. We're talking 2020, Trump and New Mexico when we come back right after the break. A terrific interview with former UNM professor Jim Linnell, who had to learn to walk again right as he was set to retire. We'll explain in a moment.